property that we want to buy in Kempton Park in Gauteng, and I thought this is a good time to make a video, long overdue, probably the most requested video on our channel and on our Facebook page. How I became a property millionaire in 3 years. This is probably going to be a multi-part video. I need to give you some background as to where I started, because I want to make sure everybody understands that investing in property is not something for the super rich, big companies, guys that have inherited a lot of money. Investing in property can be done with very little money, and if you do it right, you can acquire a very lucrative property portfolio in a very short amount of time. I basically started 21 years ago, fresh out of school, with no money, no experience, working at a law firm, doing my articles. I studied while I was, or I did my articles while I was studying. First company that I worked for, excellent property transfer attorney, old school attorney, everything by the book, and I learned a lot from them. Being an article clerk, you are never, I should say, without any disrespect, valued that much. You are basically a glorified filing clerk and a runaround guy to deliver documents to the courts, to serve documents, stuff like that. My first salary in 1999 was 750 Rand a month. Even in context in today's world, it wasn't a lot of money. I stayed with this company for probably about 6 or 7 months, and then to gain more experience, I moved to a company that does a lot of insolvency applications. Quickly after starting at that firm, I realized that there were consultants bringing in work to these attorneys, getting paid $1,000 per client that they referred. 1,000 Rand at that stage was then equal to the pay I received at the second firm. 1,000 Rand for a whole month of work, where these guys, and I thought at that stage fairly simple, just getting a client and referring them to this attorney, and immediately getting 1,000 Rand per client. There's a bit of luck involved in properties, especially if you start out like me, having no knowledge on anything. And I have to say as well, at that stage I did not, my intention was not to buy property. I had no idea that property was even an option for me at that stage. Firstly, because I didn't have the money. The first bit of luck I had was speaking to these consultants, specifically a husband and wife team that you befriend. You see them every day, good people, and I asked a lot of questions which both of them answered very fully, and they explained to me the whole process of how they get these clients, these insolvency clients, to basically, first of all, give them the opportunity to pitch the idea of insolvency, and second of all the ins and outs of how the insolvency works, in order for specifically to stop a property from going to repossession auction. One morning we sat in the kitchen before work, and it felt to me at that stage, taking a huge chance, asking these people if I could also do this. Built up some courage, asked them, and immediately they said yes, of course. There's a lot of work for everybody. They can't get to everyone, and they basically pick clients that they want to see, so that everything fits into their schedule. Again, with a lot of guidance from them, I started acquiring or trying to acquire these clients. Long story short, after a couple of weeks, I was fully into this, getting clients for this attorney, whilst still doing articles, but I got a lot of more money. 1,000 Rand a month, 1,000 Rand for every client that I referred, but still, compared to today's money in 2020, I maybe took home 4,000 to 6,000 Rand every month, seeing one, maybe two guys every second week. The turning point for me came with one specific client, also in Kempton Park. My whole property, let's call it a property empire, started in Kempton Park 21 years ago, and that's why I feel it's significant that I make this video on the way to Kempton Park again. I sat in a boardroom at his attorney's office trying to sell an insolvency application to an elderly gentleman whose house was going on auction in a couple of days, saying all the right things without misleading him, but basically selling the insolvency. And as we did this consultation, for some reason I realized that there's a lot of equity in this house, and to be honest with you, I didn't even know what equity was at that stage, but the amount that he owed the bank in total was less than 475,000 Rand. He was in arrears with 70,000 Rand, and his property was worth 750,000 Rand at that stage. The next piece of luck, as I think about it, was just realizing at that stage that insolvency was not the option. Even though there's 1,000 Rand dangling in front of me, signing this client, I said to him, without knowing how, what, why, when, where, or any of the ins and outs, I said to him, why don't I buy your property from you and stop the auction that way, and then resell your property? And the deal that I made with him, or the new pitch that I gave him, was to say to him that the profit that we make, or that I make, I would then use to pay off all his other debts, which were very low retail accounts. He had a small credit card debt, and then said to him, the money that's profit after that, we'll split 50-50. And this guy said to me, oh, that sounds like a better plan than the insolvency, because he's going to get some cash out, his house is still not going on auction, and all his other debt gets paid off. Again, understand that I had no understanding of any of the processes, and even if this was possible. And a breaking point in my life came when I walked up the stairs, told the attorney that I worked for that I have to quickly go to town. And I specifically said that because I wanted him to say to me the following. He said to me that there's no reason for you to go to town, or there's nothing for you to do. So that I can say to him, again, being a 19-year-old, very full of myself, I wanted to say to him that I'm not coming back. I'm going to town and I'm not coming back. I asked this guy to meet me in a Wimpy, not far from where we are, and as quickly as I could, I drove back to the first attorneys that I worked for. Upon walking in, I got the attorney that I worked for first in the lobby, and I said to him, I want to quickly see him for 3 minutes. He said to me, it's fine. We went to his office, and the next thing that happened is I said to him, this is my plan. I want to buy this guy's house and resell it, and is it a possibility? And probably the most difficult thing for me to hear, but one of the best things that happened to me, is that he said to me, yes, it's possible. And immediately I said to him, all right, get started on this. I'm not the article clerk anymore. I want to be your client. And he said to me, it's possible, but I have to figure out everything on my own. Which was daunting because I had a couple of days to, well, first of all, to figure out all the legalities and how the process is going to work. And second of all, which was my biggest issue, but I didn't even think about it at that stage, is I had a negative amount of R8.40 in my bank account, in a Standard Bank savings account. I have this in my office, next to each other framed, a title deed, a purchase agreement, and this bank statement showing minus R8.40 in the Standard Bank account. Long story short, I went back to the Wimpy, said to this guy, I'll see him the next morning at his house with all the paperwork, and worked through the night getting contracts drafted. The attorney said to me 7 o'clock the next morning he'll be there and just go over everything, which, by the way, there was a lot of faults on it, a lot of information that should have been there that wasn't on the contracts, and he still forced me to figure that out on my own. I then drove, after the contracts were completed, I drove to Kempton Park, and on the way there I stopped at an estate agent's office and basically said to them, I've got a property in this complex that I want to sell. What can I get for that property immediately? And the market being the way that it was back then, again, another factor that luck was on my side a lot with this first deal. They phoned me back probably in 20 minutes saying to me that they've got an investor that's willing to buy this property today. This is before I even signed the agreement to purchase with a seller. Without trying to sound too ecstatic, again, like a 19-year-old kid doing his first big property deal, I said to them, thanks, we'll probably accept this offer, but I need 70,000 Rand cash because this property is going on auction in a couple of days. And again, surprising me with the answer, the estate agent said, yes, it's fine, it's not a problem, we'll do that. From there, the rest fell into place fairly quickly. I should say so quickly that sometimes you wonder if you're not dreaming about this. But that property registered, I got a huge payout from that, and I just built on the same methodology, building with flipping these properties, basically these distressed properties, to acquire a lot of immediate cash. After a couple of months, you come to the realization, and again, this is with educating yourself. I can't stress enough how important education or educating yourself is when it comes to property. You start to realize that there's a few different angles that you can take. You can either flip these properties and sell them, buy and sell them immediately, or you keep some of them. Again, if it's a distressed property that you can get at a very low price, you'll probably get a rental income that's more than what you need to pay to the bank to service your bond. Just quickly on the bond, and I know a lot of people will ask me this, is how did I get a bond to buy the first property and then resell it again, the first Kempton Park property? I basically bought that property by way of a tripartite agreement, which is it's a very popular way of buying and selling properties if your only intention is to flip that property. You don't have, which means that I don't need a bond. The people who bought from me basically described on the contract as a second purchaser. gets a bond or the cash amount, irrespective, for the full asking price, and the money just gets divided up so that a certain portion goes to the bond for cancellation, a certain portion goes to the attorney for transfer fees if it's applicable, and the difference between the contract price that I buy from and the contract price that I sell to is basically my profit. I continue to flip a lot of properties, again focusing on distressed properties in quality neighborhoods. The reason I say quality neighborhoods, I'm not talking about super rich, high income suburbs. I'm just avoiding very low income areas. For the simple reason is your middle to upper class areas will always ensure that your risk is minimized. On all my videos you'll hear me speak about risk management a lot. If your figures are right from the start, you can minimize your risk, and one of those factors is to buy a place that is sellable in an area that there are movement for properties to be bought. I think on the next video I will concentrate more, and as I said, it's going to be a video series on how I became a property millionaire in less than 3 years, but focusing on the next video explaining the angle of keeping properties and renting them out, cash flow positive properties, renting them out, and also explaining that on how I bought these properties without having a bond. And again, before a lot of you decide that this is now the time for you to leave because it sounds like this guy is talking about people that have got a lot of property and that needs to buy cash, I need to explain in the next video the Alienation of Land Act transfers, which is basically in the olden, I'm saying olden days, in the 1940s and the 1950s, it was called a deed of sale, where basically you take over payments from a seller. So yes, thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell icon so that you know when I upload new videos. We try and have live discussions on YouTube every Friday at 10 o'clock South African time, where it's interactive, where there's a lot of questions coming in, yeah, and it's an open discussion. So next we'll probably make a video on the Alienation of Land Act transfers, and where I can show you how property can be bought without a bond, and that way building your rental property income. Thanks for watching, guys.